Good afternoon. Another Friday. Jeez, time is flying. You know, Tuesday, and then the next moment I wake up, it's Friday again, and really excited to end of the week. And so we've got two great guests this afternoon. I know I said that Vincent is going to be with us, but we've also got Glen joining us from Canada. So we have two guys from Canada. Both of them are from South Africa originally, and they do know each other. They just by coincidence moved to Canada at the same time. They got together and they decided to start a business over there. So really excited to talk to both of them and find out what was the journey like and what it is like in Canada and how does it compare to South Africa and all that good stuff, and just have a lovely conversation to end off the week. And so good afternoon. Welcome. I'm really happy for you to join us and to spend some time with us. And let me see quickly. So we've got Kobus Klein, good afternoon. Malcolm Hendricks, Denise Snell, Razan Oosthuizen, Arun, Mark, Elmin, everybody here. If you're over on LinkedIn, please say hi. It's the only way that we'll know that you are here. I know it's quite cool in South Africa. In Canada, this is like short sleeves and short, everything's short and plockies and all that good stuff, if this is the kind of weather they have over there. But in South Africa, it's quite cool at the moment. So so say hi. Very nice to have you all here. Yiku Blom and Yaku Roots and Yiku, very nice to have you all with us this afternoon. And thank you very much for joining us. And I look forward to having this conversation, as I said. I don't really have got some announcements this afternoon. I think we've said a lot on Tuesday. So we'll be back on Tuesday. I've had some interesting conversations with a few people. We're going to start a new series soon. We'll finalize everything next week, and then I'll announce what series we're going to do, give some interesting information through to you and things that you may something about. Maybe you don't know something about it, but that's going to be an interesting series as well, I believe, and very valuable. So looking forward to announce that soon. And so next week, Friday, we've also got a great guest. I'll talk more about that next week. And I've already announced that last week, Tuesday. So if you can always obviously watch all the previous recordings, so go watch the episodes. There's some interesting things. I'm busy with quite a number of interesting projects at the moment and things that are going to happen that are spin-offs of the show. So I'm really excited to do that. And so I look forward to sharing that with you soon as well. All right, so I'm not going to, spend too much time. I've got Eddie over on LinkedIn. Good afternoon, Eddie. Thank you very much for saying hi. Nice to have you here. I haven't seen you in quite a while, so good stuff. I want to sort of introduce and welcome to the show, obviously, my two friends. Vincent, you may know probably if you had anything remotely to do with seed analytics. That's how I got to meet Vincent several years ago, I think 4 or 5 years ago, if not longer. I don't know, time flies so quickly. But I got to meet Vincent and worked with him a bit. And then one day I heard that he moved to Canada. So quite an interesting journey. And I think it was this week that he was in Canada now for exactly 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. So it's quite an interesting story to share. And then I've also got Glen Nortje with us, who's also now a business partner with, or they started this business called Kingsmere Financial together. But I'm going to let them tell you more about their story and everything that's going on. So, gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to Virtual Coffee with Francois.
Hi, Francois. Thank you so much, and it's great to be on your show.
Thank you very much. Hi, Glen.
Thank you, Francois. Good to be here. Thank you.
Man, I must say, I don't know who's got the most, the more beautiful picture in the background. Is it me or is it you? I'm not sure. Yours is more realistic. Mine is more super. So I'm not sure who wins this one. I know Vincent just thought he's not going to even compete. He just goes with a blank background. So that's cool.
Hey, can I just share something with you?
Share.
I'm just gonna borrow him today to say this is Mr. Captain Canada today.
Okay. We will ignore the A on his. So he's Captain Canada and he's got his A for away. So that's cool. We'll go with that.
Absolutely.
Good stuff, guys. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you and just to find out, what is life like in Canada? Or what was it like moving from South Africa? Because you were both born and bred in South Africa, as far as I know. I'm pretty sure Glen with a surname like Nortje. you were definitely born somewhere near South Africa at the very least.
Absolutely.
So we'll get into that. And then I want to talk a little bit about your business that you've set up there, and then sort of, what is the similarities and the differences between the financial services environment in Canada and over here. And then obviously, Vincent, I want to definitely talk about your Boerewors story, which is quite interesting. I really laughed when we discussed that earlier in the week. So yeah, looking forward to the discussion. So with that, can we sort of jumpstart this and talk about what is life like in Canada? Vincent, where do you live in Canada?
Francois, in a suburb called Oakville, and that's just about 30 minutes outside of downtown Toronto, but it's effectively in the bigger, greater Toronto area.
Okay, because Canada also exists consists of provinces and that, like South Africa.
That's right. Yeah, so you've got 10 provinces and 3 territories. So it's as you know, it's a huge country, and we chose Toronto just because it's the second biggest financial city in North America, and I think it's the 5th or 7th in the world. So from a standing perspective, really quite a nice big financial services hub in North America.
Yeah, Glen, and you, do you live in the same area? Where do you live?
Same area, probably about 10 kilometers from where Vincent is. Oakville is affectionately starting to get known as Little South Africa now.
Okay.
And having lived in Durban for 10 years prior to coming to Canada, my English was really good. My Afrikaans has improved dramatically in Oakville. So we've had to adapt.
Yeah,
I think awesome. They speak more Afrikaans with me now than he used to be in Durban. So.
Absolutely, absolutely.
No, that's good stuff. And I mean, if you look at, I know a lot of people move down to Australia or New Zealand because they feel the culture is closer to South Africa, the weather is closer to South Africa, specifically in Oz. Is it the same in Canada, or what is the culture like over there, Vincent?
Francois, it's very different. To be honest, my wife, Cara, and I, we lived in the UK for 2 years, just around the change of the century. And so obviously the UK is a lot closer to South Africa from a culture perspective, and maybe the same thing in Australia and New Zealand. So Canada is definitely very different. A lot of stuff here that, that it just, you never thought about it when you arrive here. But I must say at the same time, because Canada has got such a big immigration policy, it is actually easier for us to integrate in the culture here and to do business. So if you just look at, the broader Canada and Toronto as well, more than 50% of the people here haven't been born here. So it's kind of natural, to speak to anyone. And the second question they ask you is, where you from? So it's just completely multicultural, and if you like in your street, you will have people from India and from China and Eastern Europe and some Dutch people, and then eventually some Canadians as well. So there are really a big number of different nationalities in Canada. So from that perspective, it is very different, but makes it easier to some extent to slot in. That's what I find anyway.
Yeah, Glen, do you find, how did you experience coming from Durban, because that is also different from being from Gauteng or Cape Town?
Well,
moving over there. Do you find the same, or what was your experience?
It was slightly more interesting, I think, than Vincent's, because he came straight into Oakville. I went via a province called Saskatchewan and lived in a city called Saskatoon. I left Durban. It was 34 degrees and 90% humidity. And 3 days later, I dropped my son at the front door of his new school, and it was minus 34. So it was an interesting change. And I think Vincent's right. I think because the immigration policy is so broad, it is very culturally diverse, but it is also geographically dependent. So depending on where you live and how you're positioned in that community, you'll either integrate well or not. And so there are challenges. It is a difficult journey. It's not always easy, but undoubtedly the GTA is far more diverse than any of the other centers. And with that, it does make it a lot easier for you to slot right in.
Yeah, and so before I get into my next question, I don't know if people know like how awesome Canada maybe is. I had to look it up. I didn't know. So there's some interesting things that were invented in Canada. Now I know that one of my favorite singers of all times comes from Canada, which is Bryan Adams. But there were also some other things that sort of found it was conceived there in Canada, and that was like the Wonder Bra, Trivial Pursuit, that comes from Canada. I don't know if you even know this. So I'm just checking like how well you've integrated. I don't know.
The guy from Trivial Pursuit owns the most awesome golf course about an hour and a half from here in a place called Caledon.
Okay.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, the odometer, the rotary snowplow, the air carton, IMAX. Yeah, so all stuff that we use every day. Or the black. Okay, no, we don't talk about that. So all right. So I mean, I know that I've never been to Canada, obviously myself, but looking at a map, it's quite a big space. If you look at the landmass, it's quite big. It's obviously the northern part of America. Is there there's multiple time zones that runs through that country? We'll get to, I think you've got multiple offices as well. How do you deal with this? Because in South Africa, we're so used to everything is in one time zone. So it's easy, whether it's 8 o'clock in Durban or 8 o'clock in the Western Cape, it's still 8 o'clock. But it's a bit different from where you are, if I've got my facts straight, Vincent.
Yeah, that's true, Francis. So we have it's actually 4.5 hours difference between East and West. So if you speak to someone in Vancouver, for example, it's 3 hours after you. And if we deal with business in South Africa, it's again 6 hours before us. So we can easily, we need to transition between 9 hours if we go all the way from Vancouver all the way to South Africa. And it is just something to get used to. That just making sure that you don't phone up the guy when he's still asleep and so on. But to some extent, it can be challenging. What we do find, if you live in Toronto, for example, it is a lot easier to connect with South Africa. Whereas if you lived in Vancouver, from a business perspective, you only have really 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours available during a sunshine day, to speak to your colleagues in South Africa. So from a time difference, it's a lot easier if you live in Toronto. But it's a vast country. It's Glen is flying to Saskatoon tomorrow. Glen, what is it? Is it 4 hours up to Saskatoon and 2 hours time difference?
Yep.
So it's a big country. Offices wise, we have an office in Oakville here in Toronto, and then also in Saskatoon and Calgary. So it is vast. It's a lovely big country to get used to.
So if you were to compare that to flying up and down from Cape Town to come and see clients in Joburg, which of the two would you prefer, working there across multiple time zones or flying to Joburg from Cape Town?
Well, you know what? I think if we just speak about the GTA, I used to fly every second week up to Joburg from Cape Town for business. But the GTA, that's now the Greater Toronto area, is so big that I kind of see going into downtown as my flight to Joburg. It's just a vast number of people. So just to give you a sense, so the GTA is half the size of Gauteng, and half the number of people that live in Toronto. But the GTA's GDP is the same as South Africa. It's 20% of Canada's GDP. So actually, there's more than enough to keep yourself busy just within Toronto. So there's, other than the offices, going to those offices, there's actually no need to find kind of work outside of the GTA. It's just enormous.
Yeah. Okay. And I just want to add to these numbers that Vincent is sharing with you. you can believe them because he's an actuary. For those of you that didn't know, he's a real life actuary. So you can believe the stats that he's giving you, and you can hear that he's the one of the two that will tell you exactly like how many people are there and and all that good stuff.
Absolutely.
So that's what I always enjoy chatting to you about that. So let's talk a little bit about the move to Canada. And I don't know if it's appropriate or maybe good to ask, maybe why you moved. Maybe it's more important for us to talk about the whole experience, about when you moved. And sort of the process that you went through. So maybe Glen, if we can start with you, that move through to Canada. That's obviously a major decision to make in the first place. So how long did it take you to get to that decision to say, or did you see something on the news one night and the next morning you were on your way? What happened?
Yeah, so I think, Francois, the first thing that's key is that we're all different. And I suppose to celebrate that difference is important. I'm a fairly quick decision maker. I just was having a couple of mornings of quiet time. I felt this calling to go and explore North America. And within a couple of weeks was on an aeroplane with my family on a holiday to Canada. And, we landed here, we explored, we went and investigated the landscape in the insurance and the wealth side whilst we were here on the holiday, and got back and felt a great sense of purpose. And I'm often asked this question, why did you leave? For what reason did you go? And I think the key element to it, Francois, is that you have to feel called towards something, not run away from anything. And if you feel like there's real purpose in what you do, and I'm particularly blessed still being part of the Hereford group in South Africa, and being able to build on top of that platform and create an opportunity in North America for us was pretty exciting. So I think the key driver for our family was purpose, was vision, was the ability to create more and enlarge more, for myself and for the partners that I have back in South Africa. And we lived a great life. We lived on Mount Edgecombe Golf Course. I played golf once a week. I was 5 minutes from the office, 5 minutes from church, 5 minutes from work, from the school, 5 minutes from the beach. And I lived on the golf course, which is one of my passions. So life was really, really well set and easy. But we felt this great calling and this great sense of purpose to make the move.
That's awesome. And then Vincent, you obviously and you took your time. For you, it wasn't as quick as for Glen, it seems. Although once you moved, it went very quickly. But you had a bit of a different journey.
Yeah, so definitely very different. It was in 2007, actually just before Ian de Lange and I started Seed Investments. We filed application to come to Canada. My brother lives here, and so we started the process, and then 2008 happened. They stopped some of the immigration and kind of just carried on. And then later on, the papers came through in 2010, 2012. But you know what? We had the business in South Africa and still have, and we just kind of wanted to make sure that everything there is set up properly and run well before we made the transition to Canada. So it took us 10 years. So our journey is very different to Glen, but that's just the way it is. And it's been a, you know what, being here 3 years, it's been difficult. I must say, it's not been easy, and that's the case for most South Africans as well. But we always said, I think there's a Chinese proverb about 1,000 nights. If you can stay in the place for 1,000 nights, you know more or less the direction to go. And France was actually phenomenal. Just being here for 3 years, and I think Glen, same thing for him as well. The number of people that we've met, really, really good Canadian people, really good South Africans, and other cultures as well. It's just phenomenal, the amount and the number of people that we've met and the good quality people. So it's been tough. Don't misunderstand me, but at the same time, it's been a really, really good personal growth story, as well as just it has been good.
Yeah, and if I can just add, Francois, one of my great mentors always used to say to me, "You don't land the aeroplane till the lights on the runway line up." And when I came on that holiday to Canada, it was phenomenal. My partner back in South Africa, Michael de Delacus, gave me a call. He said, you need to get hold of Vincent. And Vincent worked in Cape Town and I was in Durban. And although we partnered within some of the business structures we held collectively, we didn't have daily interaction. And so I give Vincent a call and Vincent says, I need to chat to you. And I said, what about? He said, well, I was chatting to Michael this morning and apparently you're considering Canada. And I said, well, I'm in Canada at the moment. He says, well, I already have permanent residence. And we started debating around, where would Vincent live? So he said he'd choose the Toronto area. And I said, well, Canada's a big place and the GTA is huge. Where specifically in Toronto? And Vincent turned around. He said, I really like an area called Oakville. And the irony, I was on a WhatsApp phone call to him from Oakville at that very moment. So sometimes these things just work.
And it's hard to explain sometimes, things just click and they just happen and they align, as you say. Let's quickly talk about, we can just talk about this part of the story for the whole afternoon, but I just quickly want to get into, if you look at this entire journey, obviously there's a few parts to it. There's the first of all, getting to the decision, then the preparation, going through everything, then moving there and then settling there and then continuing life as normal. So I guess there's quite a few phases that go with a move like this. What were some of the biggest mistakes you make? So if you were to do it again today, what would you do differently, Glen?
Have you got 4 hours?
No, 4 minutes for both of you. So 2 for you.
Man, you know what? I think we're going to make mistakes on the journey. I think that the intent is the most important part of it. We did a huge amount of preparation. Could have been more prepared. Could have been more diligent around the preparation. And I think probably the biggest mistake, Francois, is when you land with a perceptual legacy of what you did in South Africa. So you've been in the business for over 20 years. You've had a medium of success. You've had joy with what you've done, and you've built relationships through the South African landscape that are credible. And so you land thinking that that's just going to happen and that you've almost earned or deserved the right to be able to land into relationships at the same level. And that's undoubtedly not the case. You start right at the bottom, you go 10 years back, and from a psychological perspective, it's really difficult in the first part of that journey to accept that that's your reality. So probably, and not probably, I know this for a fact, most of the guys that we consult with, both Vincent and I, that we share with, we say to them, just be ready to know that things change for you dramatically when you get here. It's a long journey, but when you get through those 1,000 days, as Vincent has shared, there's a lot of joy on the other side of this conversation. So I would say that's the key element. Great environment to work in, lots of good people, but you have to rebuild your narrative. You have to rebuild your personal brand. You have to rebuild you as a person of interest and significance inside of this world.
Yeah, Vincent, your side.
Francois, I think what Glen said is exactly right. Nothing really to add, but just to say, you are going to make mistakes, and as Glen says, it's the intent, and kind of do your best, go through it, but definitely it is when you move to a new country, it's going to be different. It's like getting your first child, for example. It's going to be different, but nothing can prepare you for that time, and so it is. It's just I think like any business or any new thing, you have to be gentle to yourself in terms of accepting stuff that you've done wrong, but at the same time, I think it's just having the right attitude and being positive about it through that stage.
Yeah, and if you, if one moves to any other country, never mind, it doesn't matter whether it's Canada or somewhere else. It can be to Botswana or wherever. If you decide to make a move like that, I guess there's sort of two ways that you can go about it. You can either go from a point of view and look for employment in that new country, go work for someone, settle, figure out what's going on, where you actually want to live, that kind of stuff. Or you could go like, no, I've got the guts. I'm going to start my own thing right from day one. So which route did you guys follow? Did you first work for someone, or did you decide, you know what, let's just play the lottery, or were you like, let's start this business? How did, what route did you take, Vincent?
Francois, for both of us, we have the great privilege to be part of the companies in South Africa, and they've sponsored us coming over to Canada, and paved us a runway in terms of income on this side. So so we had the we were fortunate to have the support back from South Africa to be able to land softly in Canada. At the same time, building the business and start something new, as opposed to get employment, from a company in Canada. And obviously, I think there's definitely those two trances. And if some people just go for the employment, they're happily employed in South Africa, or just say, listen, I don't know the environment, and I'm going to rather get employment in Canada and learn the industry while I'm employed. So obviously there's different risks involved on both sides. You want to start something in a foreign country. The way that we chose it is obviously to start something here, and that has its different risks, but also potential upside. But I sometimes say to people that when they come over and don't have a business in South Africa that can support them for at least 3 years, it might be useful before you start something in Canada again, because you need to get to know the lay of the land while you're here.
So Glen, so I'm just going to jump to another question for you, and not go through sort of the same process. But
yeah.
I mean, is it then important, obviously, to have a strategy and a plan before you go? This isn't like, let's do the paperwork, get PR, and then move, and then decide, okay, let's see what we're going to do when we get there. How important is it to have a plan before you go?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely vital, Francois. The idea of not having a plan makes no sense. And we've been privileged to be able to help and guide different people that have landed here in different circumstances on both sides of that conversation. So we've had those that have landed with PR with no employment, highly qualified, at the top of their game, coming out of the South African landscape, and they cannot find work for 12 months. And so, that just creates another level of stress and fear in their world. And preparedness is key. So I know we'll touch on it a little bit later. We set up a little website called houses.ca to actually help South Africans narrate their journey to Canada, and to actually plot it out carefully, because the more prepared you are, the more likely it is that you'll succeed. I think it's absolute that you come here with defined opportunity if it's possible, or with a huge amount of fiscal strength, one of the two.
Sure.
So either of those are of key importance.
So it's like anything, if you've got enough money to throw at it, then don't worry that much. But if you don't, then please have a plan.
Absolutely.
All right. No, that's awesome. Just Vincent, just very briefly, how's.ca,
Sure.
What is it about, and how do you help people through that? What is the main purpose of that website?
Francois, it's so when Glen and I came over, we obviously had 2 trips coming over to scout the land. But even in that kind of sense, it was really, really difficult to get to know people through phone calls from South Africa, or emails, or LinkedIn, and all these kind of things. So it could be quite daunting to get to LinkedIn with people here. So what we've done is, and especially from Glen's input, he met with a friend of ours, Petrus Engelbrecht, from Sotheby's in Oakville, and had a good discussion, and then eventually we set up houser.ca. So really, it's a bunch of South Africans and also Canadians connecting into this central hub, where we kind of just help South Africans when they plan to come over and when they land. So, for example, Beatrice is a property agent. We're in the financial services. We have someone on mortgages to help South Africans with mortgages. We have a South African accountant. Canada Abroad is a immigration services company that helps on that side to bring people over, and then also a short-term rental person that help people to settle down, as well as a guy that helps South Africans to structure their CVs in Canada. So it's just kind of a full service offering, and then on branding as well to help people with their social media and branding. So like a full service offering to help South Africans to kind of get to know the lay of land a little bit, and to help them with their personal life when they settle here.
Yeah, no, that's
but
cool.
Definitely helpful, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, if you land up in a place where you know absolutely no one, even if you went there for a couple of trips, you know, you actually know no one. Someone told me, like, when I moved from the Free State to the West Rand, which is just as like, it's also like immigration, for me anyway. And when I got here, somebody said to me, you know, this is like in the old days when people used to live in villages. You know, you knew who was the family doctor and who was the butcher and who's the this. So you need somebody to go and introduce you to these places where you want to go and the places that you don't want to go. So I guess that's very valuable from that point of view. So let's talk a little bit about financial services in Canada, you know, because I know, like, all over the world, there's a lot of focus on regulation and changing the landscape and and everything that goes with it. Where are we in terms of, you know, in Canada? You have Australia on the one hand, where they've been like, I mean, they're over-regulating almost over there. But well, not almost. I guess they are over-regulating. You know, what is it like in Canada, Vincent? Is it, you know, is it much different from South Africa? Is it very much the same, or how would you compare those?
Francois, I would start to say that the regulation is set up differently here than what we have in South Africa, Australia, and the UK. So maybe if I can just quickly just mention this, so. It's a little bit upside down, to be honest, here. I think the way that the UK, Australia, and South Africa has done the regulation is maybe better. So where you have your RE exams first, and then from there, you start giving advice more holistically. Whereas here you have a license for insurance, then you have a license to sell mutual funds or unit trusts, and then a license for share portfolios and ETFs. So you need to get a license for each of them, but really the license is how to give advice around that product as opposed to advice for the client. So in that sense, very little, I would say, regulation around financial planning. Not so much regulation in terms of the life insurance licensing, other than Quebec. So Quebec is very different, and it's maybe more aligned with the UK and Australia and South Africa. The regulation with mutual funds and share portfolios and ETFs, those are again very tight from a regulation perspective. But definitely from the life insurance, it's less so, and then financial planning also not as regulated as South Africa. So what I would just say is, you know, for South African advisors, they're doing a good job in terms of looking at the clients holistically, and same as the asset managers in South Africa. You know, there's no ways that the asset managers and the financial planners have to kind of stand back from a knowledge perspective, the way that they treat their clients.
Yeah.
Glen, and is the barrier to entry lower in Canada than it is in South Africa and other places in the world, or is it pretty much the same?
Yeah, pretty much the same. And I think if you put it into context, when I landed here, I had to redo my insurance license. So 20 years experience meant nothing. You had to go and rewrite exams. Not very difficult. But again, as Vincent said, all focused around product and not a lot around advice. On the insurance side, you didn't even need to give somebody a business card to show them you're in the industry when I landed. There was no requirement for a needs analysis, no requirement for a record of advice, no requirement of a letter of recommendation. You literally could transact, trade, and implement in the same day. So very loose. It is getting tighter. There's a move undoubtedly towards aligning to the UK legislation. But barriers of entry are very much the same. I think the key element is desire and determination, and then the skill set that comes with it.
And is the environment very commission driven, fee based, or fee driven? You know, if you look at that whole conversation, and also I mean, there's a huge move towards lifestyle financial planning and coaching and that kind of stuff. Is that also present in Canada, or is it starting to sort of also come to the fore, or how is that sort of part of the whole focus moving? And then, as I asked, the remuneration models that go with that. What is most prominent at the moment, and is there a shift happening currently?
Yeah, if I just start, and Glenn, you can fill the end. So I would say it's definitely behind South Africa and the UK. Very much commission driven on the insurance side, as well as on the investment side. So they've only recently started clean pricing, for example. So a lot of the mutual funds are all-inclusive fees. So that's also why the MERs in the mutual funds in Canada looks a lot more expensive, because within that is embedded the advisor fee as well as the platform fee. Fee for service from a dollar amount, coaching and giving advice, you do see kind of pockets in that direction. But again, I think not so much. And I think, again, it's the way that it's the regulation is kind of structured, where it's advice on the products as opposed to advice for the client. So I would say it's a little bit behind from that perspective.
Okay, Glenn, anything you want to add?
Yeah, and I think depending on the age of the audience today, some of this will be a dead giveaway as to how long you've been in the industry. But Canada is still very strongly selling participating life insurance, whole life. Universal life insurance is still very, very widely sold, and it is very rich from a commission perspective. So there undoubtedly will be a move to reduce embedded commission. The discussions are underway, and they are probably, I would say, 5 or 6 years behind where we were in South Africa, maybe even more from an insurance regulatory perspective. Investment side, as Vincent said, is exceptionally tight.
Okay.
Francois, I would just just to if there are financial advisors that kind of think between Australia and Canada, from a work perspective. Not that I've been to Australia, but I would think in general it's less tighter here than in Australia.
Yeah. No, I also I think I agree. I've never been to either one, so but you're just reading and listening to what's going on. It's definitely the case. And so then you decided to start Kingsmere. Did you start it together from the start? Was it a plan from the start, or did you, once you got there, you decided you wanted to start this business, Glenn?
No.
So how did Kingsmere come about?
So it was always predetermined. As Vincent and I came and did the scouting trips on behalf of our South African subsidiaries, or holding companies, should I say, which are the Hereford Group and Seed Investments and Seed Analytics. We decided that we would like to start out in the insurance space and then move to building relationships on the ground in Canada that would allow us to be credible in the investment market. So, to cut a long story short, it was predetermined, it was pre-planned, it was always part of the idea of landing here to build a distribution force available for financial planners to enter into. Interesting, Francois, the one element here that we're finding more and more to be the case is the market has become so independent in the way it operates that there's this deep desire for advisors to feel a sense of belonging and to be part of something that has a clear roadmap and vision to their future. So it was always something we wanted to do. The skill set that we built in South Africa between the two of us within the companies we ran were just transferable into this environment. I think it was more about getting ourselves mobile and connected into community here so that we could apply the IP and apply the skills. So it was a predetermined business case.
All right, cool. So I know, like when Vincent and I had a chat earlier in the week, he alluded to a very well-known group in Canada called Faber, if I'm not mistaken, Faber Wealth, or please correct me when is there, if I understand correctly, you're going to move closer to them as well. What is in the pipeline with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So the beauty of the Faber Group as a business is they were started 40 odd years ago by a group of South Africans. So again, there was an immediate connection. just very blessed that through our networking opportunities that we started within the GTA, we were able to connect with them at a lunch, had a chat. Culturally, their values and our values were very, very similar. And, they're a company that has serviced probably over 100,000 clients in their journey in different areas, from restructuring to consumer proposals to executive coaching to consulting to full company reorgs and structures. And so we like the idea of collaboration. I don't think you can do this on your own, Francois. And Faber is a phenomenally well-known brand in the GTA. They're on almost every bus and every subway that you can find. And from a marketing perspective, and from a credibility perspective, they've built a business that allows us really to get sucked into the vortex of their successes. So we're very excited to see what comes as a result of that relationship.
Okay, and Vincent, have they? Because they don't have a financial planning sort of arm, or do they?
Not as yet.
No. So that is, I think that for us, is a great opportunity to be able to slot into their network. And again, you're putting your IP down in Canada. We had to make sure that we have the right partners. So both from a product perspective, but also from potential distribution. And so great company where they have lots of individual clients, but also corporate clients. And the influence stretches, as Glenn says, widely within Canada. So that for us was just important to make sure that we partner with people that can speak the Canadian language properly. And I guess that's also just a nugget for everyone that move to a new country. If you are going to start something, make sure you partner with the right people. Otherwise, you don't have the time. Glenn always says, we don't have the time for another 20 years to build those kind of relationships with everyone. So you need to partner with the right people.
Yes, and then there was also talk about, because there's no franchising structures like we have in South Africa. I mean, both from a broker distribution as well as an agency distribution side, we have these franchise or entrepreneur kind of models, which is unknown in Canada. And if the birdies are singing the right song in my ears, I like sort of you busy, maybe setting up the first kind of structures as far as that is concerned, Glenn.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, Francois, I think the narrative that we've been able to bring over from South Africa, which in many respects is a really sophisticated financial service marketplace, has been awesome. It's allowed us entry into boardrooms that I don't think Vincent and I thought we would get into. In July, we are launching the first of what really is going to be a hybrid model between a franchise in South Africa or an entrepreneur business like we have within the Hereford Group structure. And here, there's a part of the world here that's called the MGA world, which is a managing general agency world, that then allows you to get access to products outside of your tied agent contract. And so we're launching the hybrid. We have one of the top 4 carriers in Canada backing us. And again, culturally, the most amazing people. We've been astounded. And I think Vincent will agree with me when I say that when you sit in a room with compliance and legal, and they turn around and say that anything is possible, that's when you get quite refreshed with the idea that we've got something good going. So that launches now. We already are up to 12 agents and ramping that up aggressively once the model starts to move forward. And it is exciting because it's going to be a new and fresh look for the Canadian landscape.
That's amazing. I love doing this, and leave it to South Africans to go and start new things. Even if we bring it over from here and take it there, I think it's exciting to say, well, this is some new ground. I guess it's even though you are very familiar with this, it should still be exciting and scary and everything at once. So that's awesome. We're going to keep an eye on that. So Vincent, I've been waiting now for about 44 minutes to get into this whole Boerewors conversation. Because I don't know what people thought when they saw the picture that we used to actually promote the episode. So this one with the Boerewors in Canada, and I got the actual Boerewors. I don't know how people would interpret it differently depending on whether you're from Gauteng, Free State, or Cape Town, I guess. But I think when we had this discussion on Monday, I just thought like this will be interesting to bring this in. So those of you that don't know, I think the reason why Vincent and I get on is because we both, sort of come from the Free State actually. So I went north, Vincent went south. We never knew each other before. But Vincent, you grew up on a farm, right?
Yeah, that's right, Francois. So I grew up on a farm in the Brantford district, just outside Bloem. And I think I said to you the other day, sometimes when I walk in downtown Toronto with all these high-rising buildings and everything, I kind of think, man, what I'm doing here? I'm supposed to be on the farm. So it's just kind of interesting how life works.
Yeah. But when you were on the farm, I'm pretty sure that you were taught how to cut up meat and make boerewors and do all that kind of stuff. Was that the case?
So it is yes and no. So obviously we had a lot of cattle and sheep on the farm and making our own meat and boerewors. So my mum and parents always did that. Moved down to Cape Town, and so every second month, my mum and my dad would send us a lamb on the plane, and we'd just go to the airport and fetch the box with chops and boerewors and everything. So we were really, really spoiled. And then I had one or two, two friends in Cape Town, Davy and Ronald, and when they go hunting, they always make some boerewors for me and stuff. So I was pretty lazy, to be honest, in that perspective. But when you move to a country like this and you pay, you can buy boerewors here in Oakville, but it's expensive. So then we thought, no, listen, let's order the stuff over Amazon and let's start making boerewors.
Are you like serious over Amazon? Can you order meat and the dirhams and like all that stuff, or what?
No, you can order the machine and the casings, everything, and we we go to one of the big shops here to buy the mince. And great, a couple of South Africans had the same kind of vision, and then once a month or once every second month we have a boerewors Saturday, and we just make boerewors, man. But I think we've got the recipe sorted out now.
Okay, so this is like championship boerewors.
I think it's now better than my mom's boerewors in Brantford.
Okay, but then if I have a look at you where you're sitting there, it doesn't look like you part of this party.
No, you know what? I didn't get an invite. Unfortunately, I have to my own acknowledgement made boerewors in Canada with Dr. Johan Malan, who is a doctor in Saskatchewan where I lived. Another interesting fact about Canada. In the province of Saskatchewan, 50% of the medical doctors are South African. So you'll walk into any medical practice, it'll be Dr. Potgieter, Malan, Gericka. What is really funny and interesting about it is the way they have to pronounce their names for the Canadians to say them correctly. So Dr. Malan invited me to his house one day and we made boerewors for a couple of hours, and I chose for that to be the last time.
Rather play golf.
Absolutely. I've taken the soft option, Francois. My son is working at the butcher that makes the boerewors for summer holiday.
Okay. You see.
So I'm accessing it differently.
There's always different ways there. Always different ways.
Strategy is everything. All right. So let's get back to Kingsmere. I was just thinking while we were talking again in the week and then obviously thinking about the episode. I mean, if you moved, and you mentioned this quite a few times, that you still have ties to South Africa, so there's still a tie with Hereford and with seed investments and so forth. And is there sort of a way that you could help? And this is not a show about enticing people to go to Canada, so don't get me wrong. But if there were anybody that was thinking about that, particularly, I guess because the question is. When you're a financial advisor in South Africa, should you go over to Canada and be a financial advisor there as well? Or should you try and go do something different? And I guess it'll be, the answer to that question will be different for everybody. But, is there a way, if somebody was interested, to sort of get that side and to say, well, listen, Kingsmere, is there an opportunity for me to come and find my feet there if I don't want to go and open up my own shop, obviously? But is there a way that they can sort of talk to you about that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think Francois. I think it's how do you become a globally relevant financial planner? Suppose that's the question that needs answering. And how do you make sure that I was chatting to a financial planner a couple of days ago in South Africa who's keen to come over. And some of the questions we asked him was, have you ensured succession within your block of business in South Africa? Have you got a mechanism and a platform that will allow you to continually to get paid on those flows that you've built over? I think he's been in the business 21 years. And let's talk about the landscape. Let's talk about what your life's going to look like for the next 36 months when you land in Canada. And what we try to do is play out all the unintended consequences of the action. So what are the things you're not thinking about? And let's give you every reason to say no before you say yes, because when you make the commitment, it's a full-hearted commitment. But undoubtedly, Francois, we do help South African planners and clients at the same time who are looking to migrate and move assets or create a continuity plan around financial advising in this landscape. But both Vincent and I are very real in those conversations because it's all good and well to show the upside and the good side and the wonderful side of what could happen. But we do play out the unintended consequences very clearly through the conversation with planners. And yeah, we are fortunate in that we have a platform in South Africa to really use as a catapult to get them offshore. So that does help. And I don't think that's available in too many jurisdictions. So yeah, it's a tough one, but exciting at the same time if you do it diligently and correctly.
Yeah. Just so, by the way, how much does it cost, more or less? I'm just thinking about that now. How much does it cost to actually move a move like that? Whether it's now, it doesn't matter where in South Africa, but if you decide to move overseas, just the money just to get you there. No, I'm not talking about settling or anything. Just get there, get your first place to stay, and just at least that part. How much are we talking about roughly?
Vincent?
Wow. Okay. Well, you're talking about flights and your PR application, your permanent resident application, then your, let's say, 6 months of rental in a place here, buying a car. Yeah, that's a difficult one. I would kind of take a stab and say 200,000 rand, just to get the basics right. That's without moving container. There's obviously getting a container to move your household, everything like that. That's quite expensive. I would maybe take a step anything with up to $200,000 200,000 rand if you're not going to take a container. But I think the bigger thing is more the time. It takes time to get the stuff sorted out. That's probably the 200,000 rand is maybe the smallest part of it. It's more the time it takes to get here, to set up. But again, as Glenn says, it is worthwhile for any planner, if you have a block of business in South Africa, you have a revenue stream. And if you are clever, you can work with that revenue stream over the next 2-3 years until you get settled here. I would, people that want to come over, I think you need to put yourself a stake in the ground for 2-3 years. You need to get some sort of income from your block or your business in South Africa if you plan, to be a financial advisor in Canada, for example.
Yeah. All right. So, the only other question I want to ask around that, and I want to get to all the advisors that do not want to move to Canada because, one, it's too cold. They don't like Brian Adams and they don't care whether Wonder Bra was created. So I also want to talk about that. But would you say that should you take everything from here and put it on a container and move it there, or do you rather sell everything and buy new stuff over there? What is there is it pretty much the same? Does it help to have something familiar with you there? Because different people have got different views. I would be the one that just sell everything and just go start over there. That's sort of what I would. I've never been through that, but what do you think?
I think it's mostly the men's view: sell and buy. Okay. But it's the wife that makes the call, as you know. So
you are a good husband.
I hope Karen is listening.
I will send her an email, definitely.
And you know what? And then the dogs come as well.
Okay. Yeah, they have to come. I understand that. Okay. No, good stuff. All right, guys. So, I mean, what about I mean, the vast majority of advisors are not interested in moving. They want to stay here. But one of the things I discussed in one of the episodes was, if you look at the future of financial planning, being able to serve clients cross-border and do cross-border financial planning is going to become a vital skill and a vital service to be able to offer. Now, it's literally impossible to look after all your clients that are moving, because some of them will be moving to Oz, some of them will be moving to the UK, to Canada, to America, to, I don't know, maybe the Amazon or somewhere. But it's very difficult to stay up to date with everything, because you talk about financial planning, you talk about products, you talk about tax, you talk about like a whole host of things, foreign exchange and all that kind of stuff. So it becomes very hard to really stay on top if you can't even stay on top of the 5 biggest insurance products in South Africa. I mean, how are you also going to run that in my mind? So there is one of 2 ways of going about it, as far as my opinion goes, and that is, on the one hand, you can focus on, let's say I'm going to focus on Canada, because most of my clients go to Canada. So I do become proficient in like what's going on in Canada, and I try and stay up to date and try and run it from South Africa. And then with the other things, with the other areas, I either don't help people that go there, or I then partner with somebody there. Or then obviously on the other hand is just to say, listen, so let me get a partner in Canada and in the UK and in Australia to help me when my clients move there, so we can work in partnership, and at least I keep my client instead of losing them. Because I think a lot of advisors are of the opinion that just I'm losing clients because they're moving overseas. Is there a view on that? Who wants to take that? Glenn, do you want to go?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have an office in Australia as well as Canada. And it's really interesting. It's a really good question, Francois, because the simple reality is people still deal with people, and relationship trumps everything. And it's absolutely key that we maintain relationship with our clients and that we service them holistically. So we've got to service them from a local and an international view. And undoubtedly having the ability, just if I look at Canada and Australia as the two jurisdictions, to have the advantage of being licensed in both jurisdictions and speak the South African language to the South African client as a team and a collaborative structure is hugely powerful. So you got to team up to win. You have to collaborate. And really, I use the analogy of a rugby team, because the front row is not the A team, the lock's the B team, the loose forwards are the C team, scrum half's D, backline's E, and the poor guy at fullback is the F team. It's one team functioning in one unit, one body, to collectively get a result around the game that's been played. And so I think I like the narrative that you shared, Francois, in that you really need to look to partner up with people who are doing due diligence in those areas. And the more due diligence and the more credibility that comes through that due diligence, the more likely it is that you'll deliver a great customer result. And that is the idea of being a globally relevant planner. You cannot be on top of your game in every jurisdiction, physically impossible. So I think teaming up and partnering with good people is always going to be the key to great results.
Yes.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Francois, we've as you know, we've been working with a few advisors in collaboration with their clients when they move over to Canada, and I can't agree more with your initial point, and that is you have to be on the ground to kind of know the landscape and to know what you can do for that client. So there are some, there are some really, really good products here. If we don't even talk about the investment side, if we just focus on the insurance side, really good products that are very useful for people to reduce tax, for example, and the way to structure that within corporations for people that are either financial advisors here or run their own consulting firm, etc. So, I think there is a disservice to a client if you don't know exactly what's going on in that jurisdiction, because definitely the products are, and the way that it's set up is very different, and you need to understand that and get the best for the clients. More from a tax perspective, I would say, investments could be pretty vanilla, but from an insurance and structuring perspective, I think there's huge benefit if we look after the client in that sense. And just the way that we've been going about it is definitely to collaborate with advisors in South Africa on those clients.
Amazing. All right, so we are at 4 o'clock. Sure, time flies when you're having fun. What is it now? 10 o'clock in Canada, I think, in the morning. So, yeah, good stuff. I think it was a very good conversation. If anybody's got any questions, I'll jump into the comments just in a second. I know there wasn't really any questions. I think there was one question from Slanganani, which I'll deal with now. But if there's any questions or anything you want to send me, and there's some more information that you want, and we need to do like a follow-up interview where we get more specific about certain things, then let me know. We can definitely set something like that up if you are interested to know more. Even if we do it via a podcast or a recorded episode or something like that, we can definitely look into it. So I just quickly want to see, so Slanganani said he wants to know if he wants to move to Canada, what must he consider in terms of making that move from South Africa to go to Canada? What are all the things that you really need to just think about, just high level, not in detail, but just high level, like these are maybe the top 3 things you should consider if you want to move to Canada, apart from how freaking cold it gets there. But what else? Let's leave the weather out of this.
Number 1, get in an aeroplane, come visit. So do a look and see trip. So before you even go to answer 2, 3, 4, and 5, the first is the most profound. Get in an aeroplane, come here, and come in winter. Do not come in summer. If you come in summer, you fall in love, it's great, and then 3 months later, you're living with the tundra over your back, and it's Antarctica. So we came in December, January when we first visited, and we said if we could deal with the cold through a holiday and still have fun, then it's probably something we could face on an ongoing basis. So I would say get in an aeroplane, come and do a look and see. The team that we have on the ground here would happily facilitate a journey around the different areas and landscapes and environments that would get comfort. And then after that, you start going into the diligence around, am I fiscally prepared, et cetera, et cetera.
Cool. Vincent, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think that's a good angle. Come and look first. Glenn came in the winter. I came in always in the summer over a period of 10 years. So that worked for me. But I think that's good. Make sure that you know the guys are driving the right-hand side of the road, at least. So.
Yeah. And on a lighter note, will you feed them some Boerewors for lunch as you take them around?
And
have that commitment.
And
definitely, and more than that, bolting as well.
Good stuff, guys. Yeah, thank you very much. I see there's no more questions or anything. As I said, if anybody wants to know more, if they want to contact you, obviously there's the website.
Yep.
And there is then can they contact you directly on your emails?
Absolutely.
They can. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, going to put it on the screen. So Glen has got 2 N's. It's for Glen Nortje. I guess there's another Glen in Kingsmere somewhere. Vincent is just Vincent at kingsmerefinancial.com. And then obviously the website is kingsmerefinancial.com. So if you are interested to learn more or see what it's about, you want to chat to them, set up some way that you can help some of your clients over in Canada, you're welcome to do that. And if you want to know more about this and there's something specific you want us to get in more about, then let me know. We can maybe set up a follow-up for this session. Guys, but from my side, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and the effort. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
If there's anything that's interesting that comes up, please let me know, and we can obviously talk about that kind of stuff. And I wish you all the best for the weekend. Enjoy the weekend. You've got still a work day ahead of you. But people who works on a Friday did not work during the week. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Excellent.
Yeah, cool stuff. So thank you very much.
Excellent.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Stuff. Guys, thank you very much. Have a good weekend. I will see you back on Tuesday at 8 a.m. See you then. Cheers. Bye-bye.